not having him right now is obviously something that I'm not happy with, but we got to keep it going as a team.
Ladies and gentlemen, Davante Adams opens up about the Josh Jacobs situation, which is making fans nervous as each day passes by. But the Raiders have a preseason game this Sunday, and we're going to see a lot of running backs who might be able to fill in nicely. And some rookies in particular may be starting sooner than we realize. All this and more will be discussed, and make sure you tune in this Sunday on this channel, where we will be live doing play-by-play during the Raiders versus Niners game. So we know Marcus Peters has been making the secondary better. Jimmy Garoppolo has thrown a lot of interceptions during training camp, actually 7 interceptions between 2 days, but the positive silver lining in this is the fact that, hey, it could be quite possible that the defense is just significantly better than last year. And I think on paper, at least, this defense is objectively better than last year, and Jakorian Bennett is part of that reason. He is a speedster. He ran a 4.3 40-yard dash, and he has been starting opposite of Marcus Peters on the defensive side of the football, and he's been balling out. We're looking at this lineup here. ESPN Paul Gutierrez giving a projection of what the Raiders defensive lineup may be, and when you look at the secondary, it is just better than last year. It is just objectively better. Nate Hobbs is moving back into the slot where he belongs. The Raiders had him playing on the outside last year because they were plagued with injuries in the secondary. And if you have these 3 corners now, and Chandler Jones can get back to being the Chandler Jones we thought he was going to be before he signed that fat contract, then this defense may be wreaking more havoc than we initially thought it could possibly wreak. And that also starts with Robert Spillane at the linebacker position. He got his hands on the football as well during some of the drills. And Denzel Perryman was a good linebacker for the Raiders, but last year he dealt with injuries and was not available. Also, Divine Diablo was not available last year. So if both of these guys, Spillane and Diablo, can be healthy, then you are going to have a linebacking room that is better than last year, just based on availability alone. And keep in mind, Jerry Tillery is there at the inside on the defensive line, and he did not join the Raiders until mid-season after the Chargers waived him and the Raiders claimed him off the waiver wire. So now that we're starting week 1 with Jerry Tillery, Bilal Nichols, we're going to see if he can step up after last year. And Tyree Wilson, we don't know when he is going to be back, but Josh McDaniels claims that there's nothing to worry about, and we're going to see him back before the first game, and he has no anxiety about that. So when you're looking at this whole entire front 7 from the linebackers to the defensive line, you would just be wrong to say that it's not better than last year. Now, obviously, we need to see these guys play. We need to see results on the football field. So hopefully we'll find out, especially during the scrimmage against the Niners that is happening this week on Thursday and Friday. We're going to find out how tough and how much better this defense really is. And I am actually optimistic about this defense and think it could be quite possibly better than defenses we've had over the past few years. And Josh Jacobs has not signed the tag, but you have Zamir White balling out in training camp. And I'm going to be very interested to see how this guy does in the scrimmages and if he plays during the preseason. If the Raiders have their starters out in preseason, I think Zamir White's going to try to put on a show to show that he can be a starting running back in the NFL. Now, if you haven't heard this guy's story, he has an amazing story, and I suggest you check out our video. Zamir White is tougher than you. We made this after the Raiders drafted this guy, and you're going to want to know his backstory, man. He has fought through so much adversity. So if the Raiders do have a running back committee, if Josh Jacobs is not going to be there, then we're really going to find out, was it the offensive line clearing holes for Josh Jacobs, or was Josh Jacobs really just carrying the weight and making this offensive line seem better than it really is? And here's a part where I'm going to have to keep it real and sound the alarm a little bit, because I want to believe that the offensive line is just so great, and that's why Josh Jacobs had a good season. But when you look at the statistics, man, missed tackles forced, who is breaking tackles, who is making these defenders miss because they're coming in free and not quite blocked? Well, hey, that is Josh Jacobs, number 1 in the NFL, above Nick Chubb, above Derrick Henry. This guy had 90 missed tackles forced. Nick Chubb had 83, 7 less than Josh Jacobs. So that leads me to believe that, hey, Josh Jacobs is likely making that offensive line look good in the run game because he's breaking so many tackles. Can Zamir White do the same thing? And some of these other running backs like Brandon Bolden? And I'm just going to say right now, I'm skeptical about that, but I hope they ball out if Jacobs is not ready to go. Now there is another man out there who hopes that Josh Jacobs does return to the practice field, and that is none other than Davante Davante Adams. He was interviewed on NFL Network. He was asked about Josh Jacobs, and what he said was quite interesting.
You see the way we like to play the game. We like to run the ball. You know, you got to have somebody back there that's a dog if you're going to give it to him, you know, over 300 times. So
you got to have somebody who's a dog if you're going to give it to him over 300 times. And that is a good point, because for whatever reason, Josh McDaniels had Josh Jacobs run the ball more than he ever has in his entire life. 339 attempts. The closest to that is in 2020 with 273 attempts. So for whatever reason, McDaniels just kept handing the ball off to Josh Jacobs. And so Davante Adams is saying, hey, if you're going to feed the guy the rock this much, then he must be pretty important.
You know, not having him right now is obviously something that I'm not happy with.
Ooh, not having him right now is obviously something that I'm not happy with. But Davante does sound calm. He sounds cool and collected. I saw people take this statement and try to make it something bigger than it really is. And obviously, he's going to want the best running back in the NFL to be at practice, regardless of any contract situation.
It's not easy to, you know, push forward and make decisions when you don't feel that true, you know, value is from the organization. Like, they don't value the way that you see yourself. So I understand that part.
Oof. When the organization does not see your true value, when the organization does not value you as much as you value yourself, and that's a really important sentence by Davante Adams, because that is the problem here. Josh Jacobs values himself more, and the Raiders do not view him as that valuable, which is why they did not even try to negotiate a long-term contract with him. That is according to Josh Jacobs and his agent. That is why when the Las Vegas Review-Journal said the Raiders have always been open to talking to Jacobs, Jacobs' agent responded and said, what are you hearing from your contact Ziegler? Is there a chance? And Josh Jacobs liked this tweet. Davante Adams is clearly trying to be the devil's advocate and at least let Josh Jacobs know, hey, we hear you. We know you're in a tough situation. We know it sucks, but there is $10 million that you can collect if you sign that tag and play with the Raiders this year. And clearly, Jacobs is not interested in doing that. I mean, let's just be real. If he was down to listen to Davante Adams play the devil's advocate and just sign the tag, he would have done it already, and he'd be ready to compete this year and help the Raiders do something special this year. But he clearly does not like the fact that they have played hardball with him, the fact that they have not been interested in going long-term with him. And that is why this is a real report. People can get upset about this all you want. You could complain, you could whine, you can call it fake, but it is true that the Chiefs and Broncos are interested in Jacobs if the Raiders rescind the tag. And you can act like the rescinding the tag is just a wild possibility that will never happen. But hey, according to Pro Football Talk, who spoke to a source, that seems to be Jacobs' agent, maybe. We can't say definitively, but we have personally reached out to Josh Jacobs' agent, and he did tell us to read Pro Football Talk. It seems like his agent really likes those articles. So if the agent is telling us to check these articles out, they must endorse what's in these articles, which is talking about the tag being rescinded and Josh Jacobs possibly going to another team this year. And maybe that's because if Jacobs is going to play on a one-year deal, he maybe wants to compete for a championship, and you have NFL Network claiming that the Raiders are likely going to go 4-13 this year, while the Chiefs go 13-4, and the Broncos and the Chargers fight it out for number 2 in the division. I don't know if this is true. We know these predictions are always wrong. We know they always predict the Raiders to go low. But I think when you're looking at the powerhouse that the AFC is, when you're looking at some of the roster moves the Raiders have made, for instance, moving on from star players, having a brand new quarterback who, let's just be real, is not healthy, then maybe the Raiders are in a rebuild mode. You can never be honest about it, and maybe Jacobs sensed this and he doesn't want a part of it. But I would love the underdog like the Raiders to come out on top, especially given the fact that they don't have Brady. The defense is looking better all around. Trayvon Merring, let's see if he can step up. And then you have an offensive line, and we're hearing reports that Thayer Mumford may be getting reps at number 1 at right tackle, so they're improving there. And we know this receiving core is loaded, especially with the addition of Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker, who was selected in the 3rd round. It is just objectively a better receiving core than last year. Hopefully, the NFL world is trying to rate the Raiders low right now because there's a shocker and something special that's going to happen this year. I hope so, but I'm going to be live during the game this Sunday. Preseason matchup, Raiders versus Niners. I'm excited to see Aiden O'Connell. How is he going to do? And I'm also excited to see the mobile QB Chase Garbers. Can he turn into something special? Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments below. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.